G'day everyone, and welcome to another global update, 16th of October 2025. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for attending as always. Um, so let's get into it. So the world is going in some weird and wonderful places. It's all up and down, but it's definitely navigable. Probably one of the biggest things that's out there at the moment still, after 15 days, is the good old US government shutdown. The shutdown has uh, basically taken a fairly big whack to the US. The it can't be reopened. The government can't be reopened at all without the Dems coming to the table. The You need 60 votes to clear a the bill, the continuing resolution, or the bill the funding bill to keep the government open, and the Dems just will not come to the party at all. So basically, they're the only people keeping the government shut, um, and it's going to start to really affect some people over in the US. The longest shutdown was again under Trump in his first term was 35 days. They're saying this one will break 35 days. All the betting markets have basically tumbled, that it will be cleared within the next 5 to 10 days. They're all saying it'll be 30 days plus now, and it's going to keep hitting a lot of the workers, over 4,000 workers there. It's part of the reason gold and silver are moving, other markets are tumbling. Um, and a lot of that is also because of a lot of the big traders can make money whenever there's nervousness in the mum and dad investor market. Because what will happen is the pros will use the fear in the market to cash out the mum and dads, and the mum and dads get wiped out. So, pretty much what you should be doing now is buying, not selling, or holding, and moving forward. You shouldn't be doing what the herd is doing, because you'll get smacked and the professionals will just wipe you out. So there you go. We've got some interesting um, things that are going to come out of the government shutdown, but it continues, and it continues, and it's just throwing stuff. Now, does it stop a lot of what Trump is trying to do, bringing back manufacturing, and all that sort of stuff? It doesn't really. What it actually allows him to do is press on with executive orders, because a lot of the courts are shut down. And when the courts are shut down, it basically means that he can't get the opposition can't get judgments against him unless they go straight to the Supreme Court. So let's just see where this goes, but expect this to keep continuing. I will say that I'll have this slide again at our next update in a fortnight's time. Okay, so another big thing that's been happening under the surface, and those that have followed me over the years would know that I'm not a big crypto person, and I am changing slowly. Um, and the reason for that is not because of the currencies themselves. I still think that most of them are junk, but the underlying technology is now becoming recognized by the mainstream world. So if you have a look at it, especially with crypto, for crypto to become mainstream and for everyone to use it, it needs to be adopted by all the major transaction companies, right? So for crypto to become mainstream and used in a way that um, uh, will absolutely make sure that it takes over uh, from the current system, is the transaction networks need to be in place for this to happen, right? And people like Visa and MasterCard and American Express and Tyro in Australia and a couple of others around the world that control all the processing systems need to adopt it and need to use it, right? And whatever that will be, will be. But what is happening is Trump is bringing America in front of the rest of the world. And this goes with the theme of what we're going to be talking about more tonight, is America retaining its number one spot, right? So the world is changing in a very fast way. The left, especially the Dems and the elites in Europe, hate that Trump got the jump on this because they saw this as their way of bringing in CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, their way of bringing in mass control, and their way of doing everything that they could through a digital service. But what Trump's done is he's basically, in my opinion, he has basically stopped central bank digital countries in their tracks, because by bringing in the Bitcoin reserve, meaning that the US government is going to hold Bitcoins as it does gold and wheat and oil and soybeans and pork bellies and a couple of other things, it has made the crypto world in a way legitimate in the eyes of those that were still sitting on the fence, especially in America. So we're talking all the big financial institutions and funds to say, hey, we are now in the game. Now, does that mean that Bitcoin is it? No. It was just the biggest thing out there that they could do to wave a massive flag to say we are getting behind this. It could have quite easily been Ethereum. It could have quite easily have been a shit coin that had the market cap, but it didn't. And Bitcoin was it. The two main acts that have been passed or are in the process of being passed, the Genius Act has now been passed by both houses, which means it's a stablecoin thing. And basically, it's saying that stablecoins are regulated. Are regulatable in the US, and it gives a framework around them. And it means that for them to be legitimate US stable coins that everyone can use and no one's going to get sanctioned or whatever for using them or have your accounts closed for using them, is they've got to be backed by US treasuries and US debt, right? So what he's also done is he has broken the chain from the US being reliant on other countries to buy his debt to now banks and finance institutions who can issue their own stable coin can buy the debt. So basically, you take it from a group of, say, 100 countries in the world that can control your debt, where 70 of them hate you, to going to 5 to 6,000 banks in the world that can all create a stable coin, can all create a larger market for US debt. So now no longer can any one country strangle the US debt. Now this is not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over a period of, maybe 10, 12 years. But it is what is happening. We're now seeing the major banks in the world, the top 25 major banks in the world, have all come out with their own, like USA Bank or US Bank stablecoin backed by the US dollar. We're starting to see companies launch stable coins backed by the US dollar. And they're doing this to get ready to be able to transact on the new transaction system that is all blockchain based. Things like XRP, Ripple, right? They are going to be very, very important in what replaces Swift. So what he's also doing with these acts and with his push for it is changing how the game of banking is played, right? And instead of having it in a group of elites, it's now going to be moved down into the next tier down, which is the individual banks and financial institutions of their own rights. right? Which makes it harder and harder for control, right? But because what it does is instead of having, the those that are on the SWIFT system being able to control transactions, you're now able to have banks that can settle directly to themselves without having to go through a central bank because they already hold stable coins for US dollars. They already hold stable coins for euros, which are now happening. Stable coins for whatever currency it is in the world, and they'll be able to transact directly between each other on a decentralized platform. That is what he has done, and he has got the jump on the lefty elites and those that wanted to bring in a controlled version of this using the Bank of International Settlements and the current system of central banks. Now, what Trump has done is democratized the entire transfer process, right? And now it's up to the people with the technology to actually get out there and start putting it together. And we are seeing that in very quick terms. There is so many protocols now being opened up. There will be competing protocols. The BRICS nations of the world, for instance, they were probably ahead of a lot of countries doing this already. And Trump really saw that and got on board and said, no, we want to compete with that. And that's pretty much his push into this. And when the Clarity Act finally passes the Senate, and when that happens, it will then set out all the regulatory, as that note there from the Financial Service Commission says, the regulatory uncertainty that has stifled the innovation and all that sort of stuff will be removed and be brought back to the US. This is what is the biggest thing, is he wants the technology brought back and made in the US, controlled in the US. Is it going to slow the demise of the US empire? No, that's purely going to be determined by mathematics and how it all goes. But he has shattered the game of the world. I personally believe that CBDCs are gone, finished, buried. The last vestions of the Fabian cartel out there, like Australia, the UK, Canada, for instance, that are still run by the Labor loony left. They're all still hanging on to that because that's their ideology. But the underlying industry that really makes that matters is all moving to this absolutely second tier, and it's really changing the game. If you see what's happening in the last, I'd say 6 to 8 weeks, the speed of which that some of this technology has been rolled out by some of these larger financial institutions to get on board and get in front of it, especially against their counterparts in places like China and Russia that have been forced into it due to the sanctions. The other side of the coin is countries will no longer, once it comes into this framework, countries will no longer be able to use the financial system as a weapon, and which is what the neocons do all the time. You see it, sanctioning Russia and Iran and North Korea and all this sort of stuff. And all it does is make them dangerous and makes their ties stronger. When you have free and open trade, you have less war. And when you got free and open trade, free and open trade brought us out of the dark ages in Europe, which also helped bring us into probably the largest period of peace that the planet has seen, and the most freedom that the planet has seen. And that is what he's looking to retain. So this is really good news. All the bits and pieces that are a part of it haven't been worked out yet. He is literally doing the fail forward test on this. but he has pretty much cornered most of the world. And when I say most of the world, it's most of the Western world here. It's the US versus Europe on this. The BRICS, the leading BRICS nations, especially Russia, China, India, have been using alternate payment systems for quite some time. So expect the US debt to really move out of government hands and into stable coins over the next few years. And we're starting to see it now. And that will also reduce the pressure that foreign enemies can put onto the US. So a very interesting time. Watch this space. I'm enthralled by it now. I still don't get the altcoin market. To me, it's just people having a good old wank. But the utility, the smart contractability, the way that these ledgers are going to work, and when government makes it legal, regardless of what you think out there, you need government because they still control the world at the end of the day. That this will totally open up the way payments are done, and it is a good thing. So watch this space on this, and watch the Clarity Act when it gets released. So that then leads me to gold and silver. We are, let me just, I think it's yours. Okay. Gold and silver. So gold and silver is on the rise. Gold has been on a tear. It's 42. When I checked this before and took those screenshots, gold's at $4,200 an ounce. And I never thought, when I started buying gold in the high 200s, early 300s an ounce, I never ever thought that I would see, $1,000 gold, let alone $4,000 gold. Silver has been a bit of a different ride, and it has not quite broken out yet. It's woken up. That's why it's at $52, not $18 as it was. It's woken up, but it hasn't really got anywhere yet. Why are we seeing a lot of this move? One is we're starting to see, as we in the last slide and story on the crypto space and the deleveraging of US dollar debt from countries and US dollar debt being taken over by stablecoins. Well, the vacuum left at a country level is now being taken up by gold and silver. China, India for instance, are definitely moving into gold to replace their US debt, and it is phenomenal how much gold is being traded at the moment. It's the easiest way to stop yourself from being sanctioned. So the enemies of the US, because the neocons are still there and they're still very big in Parliament, and they will still use the traditional banking system to harm countries. One of the worst things they ever did was sanction Russia, because all it did was make Russia powerful. It was probably the most stupidest thing that they could have done, because instead of Russia buying General Electric aircraft engines and turbines for its power stations and electronics, it then turned around and developed it all themselves. And they changed the way that they prioritize technology. So it has been a big disastrous move when it comes to the rise of the BRICS. And you got to remember, the BRICS nations don't need the West as much as the West needs them. So this gold rise and silver rise is going to continue for some time, and probably right through to 2030, 2035, as war, as the decouplings happen, as the world sorts itself out, right? And with gold, everyone says, and one of the things, and I've got notes there about it, is um, gold is a safe haven. Gold is known. Gold's been used for many, many years. And um, there has been, people say there's only like 4 Olympic swimming pools of gold ever been mined in the world. And I look at that and fucking laugh. Um, there is statues that are being recorded history that have been more gold than that. The amount of gold that was pre-modern times. So in the modern world, yes, we've got X amount of gold, but pre that, the amount of gold that is still either lost, buried in private family vaults that have never gone anywhere. And when I say families, I'm talking about these are kings. We're talking, you know, Incas, and there was the Montessori guys out of Africa, and the Mamasuna kingdom out of Africa. And the Mamasuna king, that's that little picture there on the left, was the most gold laden king of all times. And his gold is somewhere, whether someone has it or not. Then you got the scripts and stuff of King Solomon out of Persia. The amount of gold and silver and jewels that are held by these ancient families, that haven't been in the modern records ever, makes gold a very, very tangible asset, and a very, very, very in demand asset for wealth holding. And a lot of these families know it. And a lot of it is never, ever going to be dumped on the market, but they can point to the market for their value of their holdings. So watch this space. Gold and silver is breaking out. It's starting to rise. Now, if you want a very good education series on this, goldsilver.com has a program called Hidden Secrets of Money. It's a 10-part series that the guy behind that did, and it is one of the best series that I know. I love to use it in trainings, and when I'm talking to people about how the money system works, is he just nails it, and it is really, really good. So there we go. Just on the other thing about the debt, Martin Armstrong put this up this morning. You'll see it down the bottom there. The $20 billion swap line to Argentina, people calling it a bailout. It's not, it's a currency swap. This is what I'm talking about political motives and everyone moving into the war cycle. It was keeping Argentinian pesos alive, as well as using US dollars to do it. So it's basically pumping US dollars into the Argentinian economy for a swap of their currency, which was stopping China, because China were going to do the same thing. So it was a good move, and we'll see these moves more and more and more as we see the world start to break up more and more and more. Okay. War approaches. As I keep saying, we are moving into a time of war, and it's purely and just simply because the world is changing, right? And when the world changes, people feel threatened about their power. BRICS are rising. So the chart here that whoops, go back one. The chart here shows the rise of BRICS in red and the decline of the G7 in blue. So if you have a look at that, BRICS are 31.5% of global GDP, right? This is 2023. It's a lot more than that now. And they are 30%, and the G7 was 30%. So if you continue on this merry train, so it's up here, it is getting worse and worse and worse for the G7, and that's why you're also starting to see now fractures in the G7 when it comes to the BRICS, right? So it's all about the BRICS rising. We'll see skirmishes, war break out around the world, especially when the neocons get more and more in control. The one thing that I'm afraid after Trump is who comes next. We all know what Trump is doing and how he's doing it. We all know what the past presidents were doing and not doing. What we don't know is what the future people will hold. And it's one of the things that I've said several times is I'm more afraid of someone that wants to be a politician than I am afraid of the current politicians. And the reason that I say that is I don't know really what these people's intentions are. I know if you're currently in politics, I can clearly see who you are, what you are doing, how you vote. We don't know that with the people in the background, and we don't know that with the people that want to come and be part. And most of them think that they know how to fix the situation, but all they know what to do is actually start a war. And that's the last thing that the world needs, is to be plunged back into, 10 years of just absolute global carnage. It won't last 10 years. Someone will pull out the nuclear trigger and then we're all stuffed. But that is what happens. As we're approaching war, the BRICS, the fractures that are going to start happening in the world are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The EU is going to use more and more sanctions, which is just going to force more and more people away. The EU will start to use sanctions on its own members. We are starting to see that now with the Eastern European bloc. The Eastern European countries don't want to go communist. They've come out of that, right? They joined the EU for a trade system. They didn't join it for a communist system. And that's what they've ended up with. So a lot of the people now in the Eastern Europe a lot of the countries, I should say, and the populace that have joined the EU, they're all starting to say, why the fuck did we do it? They're driving us back to where we've come from, and we don't want to go there. So watch what happens there. They will use global warming. They are using global warming for the population to look the other way while they drive war in underneath. It's going to create a lot of civil unrest, and we're seeing it now. There is civil unrest all over this world that is being structured in a way that is to keep people looking away from where the real shit is happening, right? And the mass migration that is happening, in my belief, and I'll touch on this in a minute with Australia, is all about creating new conscripts. This is how they are going to get their troops. It's the migrants. You want citizenship? Join the army. You want to get a better life? Join the army. You want different privileges? Join the army. Right? We are heading into that era. And they know that a lot of immigrants will be happy to do it. So as war approaches, watch out for these things. This is one. China's ban on rare earth exports from December 1st has nothing more to do with we want to slow down your production of weapons. China controls 90% of all the rare earth production. When I say production, I'm talking about refining, and then it's value add. the rest of the world is lagging behind so much it's not funny. It's just a statistical error, basically. Um, and the rest of the world mines it, but it doesn't refine it. And that is the biggest problem. China basically refines it and value adds it 100%. Now, them banning the export is about them building up their war machine. They will sell it to those that they approve. And guess who's going to be on that list? People that work with them, people that are on their side. Russia, India, North Korea. It's not going to be the US Japan alliance where a lot of our weapons and stuff comes from. So watch this. Um, the biggest slowdown in weapons production in the modern world is rare earths. It is going to be a phenomenal impact on how much it is. Now, what Australia should do is become the Switzerland of rare earths. Is we will mine it because we have a shit ton of it. We will value add it. Mine it. We will refine it, and you can send your rare earths here to go through our refineries, and then we'll value add. We're building one refinery in WA at the moment. There's another one looking on. But the problem is these refineries are only going to work at about a 3% capacity at best because they won't have the raw material to go into it. So we need to start opening up our minds more in Australia. Australia can really jump on this opportunity. This is a massive opportunity for us, and it's been telegraphed in such a huge way that if our politicians got on board and were just, instead of just being idiots, actually got on board with just this one thing, Australia could be a phenomenally powerful country based on this. It would absolutely bring riches into this country that you wouldn't know just because of what we're sitting on. And then we expand it out from rare earths to steel to aluminium to glass to petrochemicals, right? To all the stuff that the rest of the world needs. And we can be in the place to provide it for them because we're at the arse end of the world. We're not going to be tapped when it comes to a major war, but we could very well be in a position to dominate and grow and prosper from it. Will our politicians know because they all want to be, buddy buddy and fucking look at me on the world stage? We are governed by world-class clowns, and it's at a detriment to this country. We'll be worse off for it if a war comes and we don't have a position to wield a big stick with, because when the war comes, resources like fuel, oil, imported foodstuffs, imported chemicals, medicines, and so forth that we no longer manufacture here or control here will no longer be available to us. Purely and simply because supply lines will be fractured and people will hang on to it because that's what you do in a war. And we'll be a major casualty for it. So this is major crossroads for us. And China has raised such a massive fucking opportunity for us to actually become a dominance in this space. Absolutely huge opportunity for us. But we are governed by clowns that have no idea what's going on. So I open up to the entrepreneurs of the world to take it by the hands and grab it and do it. So that's the world. So let's move into some of the Australian stuff. Um, and I'll try not. Yeah, I'm running a bit behind, but anyway, unemployment. You know, everything that the government bureaucracy has been telling us is that inflation's under control and we've got the best of this and the economy's doing the greatest and all that sort of stuff. Well, guess what? It's not. New data dropped today, unemployment up to 4.5% from 4.3. It was 4.2, forecast to be 4.3, and it's coming out at 4.5. When you look inside the numbers, though, it's worse. 80% of all new hires are government or government related. That is communist countries, folks. We are there. Australia is in communist. It is in that territory now, today, as we sit and live and breathe here. When the government is the largest employer and the largest part of the economy, your economy is communist, Marxist. So welcome to a Marxist state, Australia, because we are there. The numbers tell us we are there. Small businesses are on the brink. A lot of small businesses are struggling. There is so much delayed payment out there in the system, and the world is just struggling. People are taking 90, 120 days to pay bills. Cash is tight. Unless you're tied to the government and on the government teat, cash is not flowing. It is getting harder and harder. People are living on credit cards. People are living on borrowings. It is really, really in tough times. The problem is, as we'll see later, when we start to talking with voting, is most of the people out there think it's okay. And that is the disheartening part. This shouldn't be Australia. The other thing that came out in the data was in large firms, and I'm talking large multinational firms, have jumped on Australia's work from home bandwagon and basically said to themselves, if you can work from home, I don't need to hire you in Australia. And I had this pointed out to me the other day, and I didn't take much note of it when I was talking to a guy that's on the CPA, one of the CPA or accountancy boards. And he said one of the firms that he works for or with is going through, looking at all the people that work from home. If they can move that job to somewhere else, because basically all these employees that are demanding work from home have basically risen their hand and said, I can be employed by someone else cheaper somewhere else. I've made my own job redundant. And large firms are running around now going, little Johnny works from home. Okay, what does he actually do? XYZ. Pamela in the Philippines will do that at a third his hourly rate. Let's get Pamela to do that. Or they're going, oh, Jenny. What does Jenny do? Jenny's on the data team. Australia's rate. Okay. She's getting 120 grand a year. I can get someone in America who is just the same amount of skills, but because the US minimum wage is lower and the US average wage is lower than Australia, I'll move that entire department back to America and employ Americans. So I'm cheaper, getting the same work done. I've phased array now that work, which means that if we have a small team here, they can push it off in the afternoon and get it done overnight. So now we can be 12 hours ahead on that work, right? So all of a sudden we're a bit more efficient and people have done it themselves. Whenever the government offers you something for your convenience, it'll be to your detriment. And we are seeing that now by the way large corporations are moving. And I've also started to notice in my inbox and in mail, there is recruitment firms from overseas pushing that line. We can employ your staff overseas cheaper. So, if you're a work from home idiot, you've killed your own job. Well done. And these people will only find out when their DCM comes. And for those that are old enough to know what a DCM is don't come Monday, pink slip. Right? And that's where we're at. That's why our unemployment is rising. It's not because of AI. It's not because of, anything other really than we're outsourcing our own jobs because the government's hiring. The government will keep hiring, but large corporation, small business, and everyone else that can get away with hiring elsewhere are getting rid of work from home people. So be very careful what you wish for. You could do yourself out of a job. Last week we talked about, are we being invaded? And I believe, yes, there is a effort out there for the governments to bring in more immigrants, and this is a reason why. It came out during the last week that the government has been doing research on increasing the number of parliamentarians. And the problem that this is going to create is enormous, not just from the political stream, but also from a constitutional stream. Now, we have to have a ratio of parliamentarians to senators, and it's roughly 2-1, basically, two House people in the House versus two in the Senate. There's currently 72 senators and 150 members in the House. So that's roughly 2-1. There is a range, and it's set in our Constitution. The other thing that Albo wants to do is increase terms. So basically, he wants to go to 5-year, either 4 or 5-year lower house terms, which means the Senate will have to either go to 8 or 10 years. Now, the game here is all about the Senate. It's always been about the Senate because the Senate really controls what happens in the House. You could have 90% of all the seats in the House. If you don't control the Senate, you can't get your bills passed, right? So all these changes are to do with the Senate. So what will happen is places like the ACT and the Northern Territory will get more senators. Traditionally, the ACT and the Northern Territory elect Labor or Green-leaning senators, especially the ACT. More lower house seats will be in inner cities. Inner cities are generating woker people, left-leaning people. So the vote is going to go more and more there. And off the back of this, citizenship for military service connects to what I was talking about before about the war period. This is a quick way of increasing citizens. Let's import them. Okay, you come here to go to school, join the military after your schooling, get automatic citizenship after 2 years military service, and now you've got the right to vote. Because if they're just permanent residents, they can't vote. Right? They need them to become citizens. And with a war beating, why do you think Albo's committed us to troops for Ukraine and troops for the Middle East and troops wherever he can, so he can bring his citizenship for military? And I honestly believe this is one of the things he's doing. And this comes back to the security packs that he's trying to do in the Pacific. And where in June, sorry, it was probably just before June, but in June 2024, the ADF opened its doors to non-citizens, starting with New Zealanders, then moving to other Four Eyes nations, Japan, Canada, the UK, and it's now been, from the last thing I saw, it now includes Indians and other select groups from the Pacific Islands. So the PNG Security Pact, up to 10,000 people from PNG can now be in our military, and it gives them an automatically pathway to citizenship. This is in the security pacts that have just been signed. Along with us giving them basically up to $1 billion, it means that their citizens can also become Australian citizens. They can have dual citizenship. Live in the Pacific, vote in Australia. Join our military, get free citizenship. When you start looking at all these things, they are all interwoven and linked, and it's all by design. They are stacking the deck to make sure that basically voting no longer matters. And these security packs, he hasn't got the Vanuatu one away yet, has one with Nauru. There is one being drawn up with the Solomon Islands, which will be on the same footing as the Papua New Guinea one. There will also be several others for the Pacific. Tonga and Samoa are on the list as well. Fiji at this stage is just about 100% in China camp. It could nearly change its flag to the Chinese flag. Poor old Fiji. But Australia is looking at this way of increasing our citizens, which will then increase the number of parliamentarians, which keeps them in power, which then allows them to send people to war, and so forth and so on. And when you start looking at it this way, it is a very integrated web of ideals. And when you look at it, it's all a Fabian playbook. If you don't know who the Fabians are, go and research them. It's the Fabians of the society that are behind basically the Labor governments of the world. So the Democrats in the US, Labor here, Labor in Canada, UK, the French parties, and so forth. So these security packs are dangerous. They look great on the surface, but underlying it, they are dangerous. A quick one here to leave on this is Jim Chalmers' unrealized capital gains got scrapped. I always thought it would. He's fiddled around now, is going to index the 3 million and 10 million. 3 million plus gets 30%, 10 million plus in super gets 40% tax. Are trusts next? Yes, he'll have a go at it, but he'll do the same thing. Unrealized capital gains, but now we'll sneak in tax on trusts. When's that going to happen? Probably not for a couple of election cycles. They'll need this to be disappeared and forgotten and can't be brought up. So it won't happen this next election cycle, maybe the one or two over. So we're looking at 2031 before anything towards trusts, in my mind, could happen. I have been blindsided with the way how quick things have taken a turn for times, but Jim Chalmers got what he wanted, and that was a tax increase on super accounts rather than the unrealized. So once again, he led with look at me. This is how stupid is this, but I got what I really wanted through in the end. That's how politics is played, and that's how these guys play it. So wait for the next assault on trusts and then the family home. I still believe that the family home whether it's through inheritance taxes or bedroom taxes or something is going to, there's something in the woodwork that's going to come out shortly. Um, they will do the family home while they've got such a strong seat in and representation in the parliament, where even if it hurt them, it's not going to lose them government. So watch this space, people. Super's been done. They got what they wanted, the tax increases. Um, and watch the same thing with the family home. There'll be an outrageous claim, but the underlying thing will be what they really want. And it'll be the same thing. It'll be the reduction of negative gearing, or it will be the capital gains will be deducted, or it'll be an increase in some form of taxation on the family home or something. But watch this space. So we'll leave with politics matters. I'll leave every week with politics matters. This is a resolve poll. It's slightly different to the one that I showed last week, but the intent, everything's still the same. You know, the ALP still comfortably win government. One Nation is growing in the middle. The Greens are still roughly where they've always been. Independents and other are still jumping up and down. And funnily enough, the LNP clawed back one percentage point. That could even be due to a rounding error, but Labor are still fairly in control of the voting public. The gender split on this, I thought, was worth noting. At first, I thought they got the numbers backwards, because typically females vote left more than the right, than males. But these numbers are really, really striking. And when you see what's happening with the protests out there, it sort of makes sense. So male ALP 35, LNP 30, not what I expected. I would have expected, lower numbers for especially for the ALP, and for the LNP in the males, because males tend to be work. So the males tend to be more conservative than they do than females, because females work in the spaces where the social progressive stuff happens, but it's not showing in the results here. 32-26, so 3 points difference. But more females One Nation Greens than males. That sort of makes sense. And a lot of independence for the males. So the males are looking for a home versus the women. The women have sort of said, yep, I know where my home is. So very, very interesting split. And it could also be generational as well as we might have a skew in our age ranges there somewhere. So it'll be, it's just interesting. The numbers didn't come out the way that I thought they were. So watch this space. Once again, with anything to do with polling, it's not the individual snapshot of the numbers, it's the trend over time. And you've just got to keep watching the trend over time. The trend is your friend, as we used to say in politics. Time for reform. Do we need a reform party or style party in Australia? I do believe we do. I think we need something totally different to what we've got now. The UK, though, is first past the post. So you tend to get wild swings and wild changes, because you can win a seat on 30% of the vote. If there's enough people running and you get enough distribution to everyone, where the person that wins gets 30% and then they're the winner for the seat. Now, if we have a look at where Reform are in their cycle in the UK, a lot of it is that. A lot of them are lots of people in the race, lower numbers are getting over the line, 35, 36, 37, 25, high 20 percentages in some seats. So don't expect this to be what is actually going to happen on the day. Do I think that Reform will be a major party at the next election? 100%. The pressure on the majors in the UK is too great for it not to be, and for them not to end up really pushing through. So watch this space. Reform is really changing the game in the UK, but it will do it. It won't do it to this effect in the actual general election, which is due in 4 years' time. Right. So we've got a long way to go. A lot can happen in 4 years. The UK may not exist in 4 years' time. Someone might have pressed the nuclear button and it's gone. We just don't know. But at this point in time, incredible numbers for the year. But it also shows sensible policies, scrap net zero, get rid of trans, secure borders, make it easier for the working man, and so on, is what it's all about. And that brings me to my last thing for tonight. Voting matters to some people more than others. What do I mean by that? The wealthy don't care about a vote, right? They will happily vote, and they happily vote along their lines, but to them, there is no advantage in just turning up to the ballot box every 3 years to vote. There's no influence in voting. The influences is being part of the political process. It's going to the parties, it's going to the schools, it's going to the functions, it's going to the charity events, it's going to the mixers. It's been known. It's been able to influence the people that get voted. That's what the wealthy care about. So that's why the wealthy will travel, because they can infer that influence anywhere in the world. If you're wealthy and bringing jobs to Malaysia, politicians are going to listen to you. Same in Singapore, same in Hong Kong, same in the US, same in Canada, same in the UK. Anywhere in the world, it's the same. China, Russia, all the same. But we're voting is a lower middle class thing. We wrap our hands around it. We want it. It makes us feel so important to be part of the process, to go and do that one thing every 3 years. But it basically doesn't matter to the wealthy and those that can influence. Politics matters. Voting doesn't necessarily matter. We still want to change government through voting, yes. But the politics of who. So if you can very much influence a politician to have them stand up who's got a platform, to get on their platform and sprout certain views, to create certain followings, that's worth more than one vote. Because what it will do is you can push an agenda behind 1, 2, or 3 people, create a movement, and then your one vote turns into 100,000 votes. And that's why politics matters, is because it's about making sure that direction that you want. So if you want to change the country, yes, vote, but the voting is the end game of making sure politics matters, making sure that you have influence, making sure that you are connecting with the people, making sure that you can then get the word out to make sure that the vote that you have is multiplied 10 times, 20 times, 1,000 times, 100,000 times. And that's why the wealthy don't care about voting, because their vote counts the same as yours, but their influence and the way they play politics means that they can influence 100 people. So all of a sudden they're timesing their vote by 100. So just some food for thought, and so we'll leave on that tonight. If anyone's got anything, any questions they want to recap on, let me know, or if not, we'll leave it there. Wow, right on time. So thank you guys, and I'll talk to you in a fortnight's time. Bye.